Hello, Jen. It's been a while. Uh, as you know, I've been working on this stupid video that has taken me a really long time, and it's going to be about 3 minutes, and it's going to be really incoherent, but I've just been procrastinating working on it, which is why I've not been releasing anything recently, but I wanted to get back on sort of like a consistent vlog schedule, I guess. So I'm coming to you from Uganda. This is my first video back. And this is going to be another talking at the camera video because I just have like a thought, and I don't know that it's a new thought, but it's a thought that I felt was quite interesting. So I wanted to take a minute and just do a little check-in. So I think there have been two things that have been taking up a lot of space in my mind. The first one is moving to Uganda, a country that is extremely different from Canada, extremely different from the States, which are the only two places that I've actually lived. And one of the sort of defining features of how it's different is lack of access to a lot of resources that I took for granted in a lot of ways being in Canada. And I'll preface that by saying I'm very aware of the privilege I have being here as one of the wealthiest people in this country, probably in like the top 1%, top 0.1% easily. But it's still really hard to like get a lot of things here. It was really hard for me to find good mozzarella. It took me 2 months to find good mozzarella. Still haven't found most of the other cheeses that I'm used to having at home. Good pizza. I'm so sorry to anyone who's from Uganda, but the pizza is not it. And there's just been a lot of things that I think I took for granted being in the States. Being in New Haven, for instance, where there's some like world famous pizza. It didn't hit me, I guess, that this was actually such a big deal until I got here. So that's the first thought. But the second thought, kind of the opposite. The second thought was that actually I have so much access to so much information, knowledge, ideas, media. Being here, being alone in a new country for the first time, it's felt like a lot of my time is kind of just spent in my own head, consuming things, because I'm not talking to as many people about my ideas. I'm not using a lot of my energy to synthesize new ideas. Rather, I'm spending a lot of time consuming. And I realize this is really annoying when you feel like you could be consuming 100 different things at once, and it's really hard to select which of those things is actually worthwhile. And so you're trapped in like this endless cycle of not knowing what's good enough to be spending your time reading when you know you could be reading any book in the entire world, in the entire history of the world at any given moment. But then something interesting happened. So the other day I was trying to go out and watch a movie at a theater. I was, in a new city, wanted to just go on a date with myself. Realized there's only like 2 theaters in Kampala, and they only show like the most blockbuster movies that you can imagine. They show the F1 movie, they show the new Fantastic Four, maybe a Bollywood movie if you're lucky, but that's it. And that is the extent to the movies that are being shown on the big screen here. This was really a damper on my quality of life. But like living next to the Westdale while we were back in McMaster and being close to the culture that emanated from a community hub where you could go in and have movies sort of selected for you to go and watch. I mean, this is a totally different ballgame than that. But it made me realize that if I wanted to go out and see a movie, I had to go and watch one of the movies that had been pre-selected for me. There was no like range of options that I could select from. Sure, I could stay home and watch my own movies, but if I wanted to go and see a movie on the big screen, it's gonna have to be Avatar 3, because that's the only movie worth watching that's playing on the big screens in Kampala. And then I had another realization that made me feel this way. I started playing a lot more sports once I came here. I'm on a women's soccer league. I started boxing classes. I'm gonna start climbing outdoors, which I don't know if you've done this before, but I might actually maybe have beaten you to it, which would be crazy because I climb maybe 5% of how much you climb. And I was thinking, isn't this crazy? It's the only reason I'm doing it is because I'm in a city where people are so inclined to seek out fun activities because they're not just being shoved down their throat all the time, but they'll actually go out and do things that they wouldn't have otherwise really felt was worth the effort. So now I'm going to go to a quarry and I'm going to top rope on a real life rock. And I wouldn't have done that if I was in the West. I wouldn't have done that if I lived in the Rocky Mountains, because I would have been so, preoccupied with the millions of other things that I should do first. Like how I wasn't good enough at climbing, or how I didn't know how to do it right, or like how I didn't know the right people to do it with, etc., etc. But coming here and knowing that there's a finite number of things I could be doing in a given week has expedited a lot of the decision making for me. The reason I ended up actually making this video today was because this morning I was cooking for the first time in a while. Since coming here, I've been eating out a lot, partly because food is so cheap, partly because it's felt really hard to find groceries that inspired me, because I've been hiding in my hole in like the sort of diplomatic part of Kampala where no one actually local lives and where you're not really spending time getting to know the community. And last weekend I finally went out and I visited the fruit markets, big fruit markets and vegetable markets, and saw some shops that I didn't realize existed around here. And I realized that actually there's an oasis of like good ingredients. And if I sought it out and actually put the effort in to like find my mozzarella, find my high quality mozzarella, and find like the good cabbage and all of that stuff, I would be left with ingredients that I can make something out of that I wouldn't otherwise really be able to find here. And so because of that realization, I've been starting to cook a lot more and cook a lot more food that actually excites me and like makes me want to enjoy food. And it's essentially brought a dimension of like richness into my life just by nature of not being something that I can access very easily. And like if I was in the West, I would know that, you know, I could spend $40 at Whole Foods and make a nice dinner, and I would love that dinner, and it would be worth having gone. It would be worth the same as going out and and getting that dinner at a restaurant. But knowing that I always have the option to do that, and knowing that it's a bit more work, has meant that I've literally never done that. I've never been the sort of person to like put the effort in to make a nice meal for someone or to make a nice meal for myself. Being here and having the time, and now finally after 2 months of thinking I was not going to be able to do that here at all and I would only have to eat outside, realizing actually you can make a pretty good system of cooking on your own, especially if you know where to look. That's made me want to go and find out where to look. And so I've like been a lot more intentional about eating food that I like. And that's been awesome. And I think it's making me a lot happier. Basically, it took me coming to a country where I didn't have as many resources to realize how much the few resources that I did have mean so much more to me here than they did. And this is obvious. This is obvious. Yeah, like, yes, you're grateful for things when you don't have them. But you're grateful for things when you do have them if you actually have fewer things, I think. I'm a lot more grateful for the things that I do have here, because I'm not being forced to make that choice constantly. And in that regard, I'm just a lot more excited about the few things that have already been chosen for me.